Hi, this is the fourth video that I'm going to post on YouTube about demand curve strategies as they're derived by the basic brand loyalty modeling system. In this thing I'm going to show you what happens when we calculate demand at market prices. This is the basic machine for the demand curves that I derived. So it's worth your while to make sure that you understand how this works. I'm going to start with the slide that I'm going to end with. In other words, at least you will know what I'm heading towards. One, this is a very, very price sensitive market. And then this is a very brand loyal market. Probably because there are some badge brands that are used to show the world who and what you are. That you would have guessed from the demand curves that I showed you. They were extremely price sensitive. However, there was a great brand loyalty up to a point for every brand. Now, given that, this is the reason you should work for demand curves and why it is very dangerous to ask usual brand questions. Some of the results in the previous videos I was a bit surprised at. Assume you would have been. This presentation explains what it is. It's important to work on the calculated evoked sets from the demand curves. And I'm going to show you a ready reckoner for promotional pricing decisions. Well, in a later video, I'm going to show you exactly why you need this. Okay, here's the thing that I call the ready reckoner. This is used throughout to calculate the brand demand curves, and I calculated right in the beginning and virtually throughout the presentations up to now. I kept on talking about a parity price, if all brands are at parity price. Well, why did I do that? I wanted to remove pricing as a decision-making influence, and I'm going to come back to the economics of what brand utility is and how that relates to price. Let me talk you through this little ready reckoner. Those two highlighted columns shows you the level at which the brands are selling. In this case, all of them are selling at level 1. And then the price that represents, well, that is 50 Rand. So you've got to keep your eye on that. The thing will then calculate how many respondents stated that they would buy the brand at this price combination. And of course, since we know their volumes, we can calculate the volumes that they represent. And at these prices, we can calculate the percentage of the value that they represent. Before I start changing these things, I want to show you this little doodah at the bottom, where you'll see macro prices. Well, I put that in. The thing will give you a direct link into the macro database so that you can see at what prices these things are selling in the real market. For this little case study, I'm again going to concentrate on Heineken. You'll see if it sells at parity price, 50 Rand for 6-pack, then 38% of the respondents stated that they would buy it. Probably true. That represents 49% of the volume of consumption and 38% of the value of consumption. So things would be very nice for Heineken if everybody else kept to a parity pricing. By the way, the value represented would be 1,700 Rand or 170 packs, which at 34 Rand for 34 respondents will be just over 5 packs. Well, that little macro button is quite sexy. It saves the prices once I've set them up for what the macro prices are, and when I click on it, not only does it send me to macro so I can check the prices, but it inserts the prices and the price levels into my little ready calculator. So you'll see Castle Lager selling at 55 Rand, Lion Lager at 55 Rand, and Heineken at 65 Rand, and then you come down to Castle Light at 70 Rand. So that is the current market structure, and you can see from here what would be the volume and value outcomes of that. now look at Heineken, my example beer, and you will see that Heineken now selling at 65 Rand, and given the market structure out there, will only have 17% of the respondents saying, I will buy it at that price. That is quite a drop from the 34% that we had in the previous slide. And of course that comes down as far as the volume and the values are concerned. Well, I've now included the slide of Heineken in the situation where all brands are selling level, and at that, say that 38% of the respondents would have preferred Heineken. I've also put in the slide of preferences at market-related prices. And what happens in real markets is that over time the marketeurs will find a balance. In other words, they'll have a pricing strategy, and as market shares dip or grow, they will adjust their prices to find a balance, countering each other's strategies. In the previous presentations, it sounded as if Heineken and Castle Light are very competitive. Well, at parity prices, at 38% of the users being Heineken and 20% being Castle Light, well, yes, those are the two brand leaders in the sample. But when you now look at the macro prices, well, Heineken is down to 17% from 38% at their price of 65 Rand. And Castle Light has come in above Heineken at 70 Rand. And it drops its share to 20%. In the previous analyses, it didn't sound as if Heineken and Windhoek Light are very competitive. Well, Windhoek Light at market prices in the bottom chart is selling at 50 Rand. Very, very, very cheap. And that now gets them 23% of the respondents. There is this massive interplay between the brands, and that is why I have this ready calculator that you can simulate things at market prices and then work out where you should be. Now, the top one shows Windhoek Light, as I had in the previous slide, at 50 Rand per pack, and it had a respondent share of 23%. Well, those 23% of the respondents only gave it 21% of the value. Why? Because at 50 Rand it is cheaper than most of the brands out there. And as brand manager, you now decide, well, if it's such a strong brand, let's increase the price from 50 Rand to 55 Rand. And of course you also have to macro and you offer them a special deal. Not special deal, the opposite. You tell them, we've now increased the price of Windhoek Light by 5 Rand per carry pack. Before you do that, you go to the ready reckoner and you see what happens. Well, if you increase Windhoek Light to the second level, in other words 55 Rand, your share of respondents goes down to 10% from the 23%. Incredible price elasticity that you're dealing with here. And, well, your value now is equal to your volume and respondent share at 10%. So you're not losing, because you are getting a little bit of money out of your price increase, but you've gone from 21% of the value share down to 10%. Not a clever move. So in this market, be very careful when you increase your price, or even when you go on promotion. You should know when you go on promotion what the other beer's prices are, and be also careful that they are not on promotion at the same time as you are, well, except you can go lower than them. I'm going to talk about that in a later show. Okay, now we get to the comments that I said I'm going to get to at the beginning of the show. Well, this is a very, very price-sensitive market. And it's not only that people are price-sensitive towards your brand, it is the interaction between the brands that become a problem. It's also a brand loyal market. There are people that won't shift. We are going to look in time whether these are the heavy users that are brand loyal or whether heavy users become price-sensitive. This now explains some of the results in the previous 2 videos, which you might have found funny. I did. It does make it dangerous to ask usual brand. Most certainly be careful of asking usual brand and assuming that that is what they buy. It is important to work on calculated evoked sets. Now you've got to calculate that from the demand curves. And I showed you a ready reckoner for promotional and pricing decisions. So I showed you the basics of how I calculate the demand curves, but in the process I now showed you a ready reckoner for promotional and pricing decisions. Thank you. See you soon.